Hello and welcome to this week's edition of our Energy News Update. Energy supplier E.ON has joined the race to cut gas prices, announcing a 6% cut in the price of gas for domestic users from April of this year. This move has come on the back of earlier cuts announced by both British Gas and Scottish and Southern, fueling industry predictions of an erupting price war between the major energy suppliers. EDF Energy, Scottish Power and RWE mPower are under severe pressure to follow suit, outlining their own series of price cuts before their customers begin switching around for better rates. Shell teamed up with PetroChina earlier this week in a $2 billion takeover bid for Australia's Arrow Energy. Arrow hold Australia's largest coal seam natural gas reserves, 37% of the country's current proven capacity. The bid appears to be focused on building security of supply for the Chinese market. Australia's coal seam natural gas could play a small but significant role in meeting China's rapidly increasing demand. However, some industry experts believe that demand may grow at such a rate that other resources must soon be sought out. In this week's special report, we're looking at the development of carbon capture and storage, or CCS. Amongst the plans for Britain's low-carbon energy, there is an important role for fossil fuel plants fitted with CCS. This week, Ed Miliband announced that tens of millions of further funding was being given to E.ON and Scottish Power to finish the design work for their CCS projects. This comes in spite of E.ON shelving their plans for the new Kingsnorth coal-fired station. Last year, DECC also announced that it would place a levy on the power companies, which would be passed on to consumers to fund the £9.5 billion cost of building the 4 full-scale demonstration plants fitted with CCS. The development of these carbon capture projects is still the subject of much debate, and we won't know if the technology will be viable before 2020 at the earliest. With us today is Mike Allen from the Inenco Energy Trading Team to help us look at the background to these issues. Mike, can you just give us a quick reminder of what carbon capture and storage is?
The principles are pretty straightforward. When you burn fossil fuels, one of the byproducts is carbon dioxide. CCS is designed to catch the carbon dioxide, which is then pumped away to be stored, probably in depleted gas fields in the North Sea. In context, our biggest power station at Drax produces over 22 million tonnes of CO2 every year, which represents over 3% of the UK's total emissions.
So how does it work?
Well, there are two types of system. One works by spraying a chemical into the exhaust gases that absorbs the CO2. The other treats the fuel first to remove the carbon, leaving just the hydrogen that can be burnt without producing emissions.
Why do we need to spend so much on proving these systems work?
Well, at the moment, we've only tested the technology at a very small scale. At Longonay, a power station in Scotland, a tiny proportion of the exhaust gas has been processed in a unit built into a shipping container, so there's a massive amount of development to be done to scale this up for a whole power station. The other thing is that capture is just the start. The infrastructure to pump the CO2 to the storage sites is huge, and the full demonstration has to include storage, otherwise the whole idea just doesn't work.
Aside from the costs, these systems make the power stations less efficient. Will this put up power prices?
Probably yes. There are estimates that the cost of generation could go up from anywhere between 25 to 80% once CCS is operating. There's no doubt that these costs, again, probably will be passed on to the consumer.
So why is it important that this technology is developed?
As well as cutting carbon emissions, there's also the question of energy security. We still have large reserves of coal in the UK, and as power prices increase, it will become, or may become, economic to start producing this coal again. If we can make CCS work, then combined with renewables, we could cut our dependence on imported fuels.
Thanks, Mike. That's all that we have time for this week. Visit us next week to keep up to date with the latest energy news. Thank you for watching, and for now, goodbye. This week has seen further falls in wholesale prices for both electricity and gas. For gas, month-ahead prices are below 30 pence per therm, a decline of over 20% since early February, when the worst of the cold weather lifted. For electricity, the decline is steadier, with a drop of around 10% since the start of 2010. Similar declines on the forward curve are further evidence that the long-term link to oil prices remains broken. Oil prices hit rock bottom at the end of 2008, falling as low as $40 a barrel. Since then, however, oil has made a steady recovery to between $70 and $80. In normal conditions, we would expect to see both electricity and gas following the trend of oil. Industry analysts have pointed out that the oil price was driven up on the expectations of an economic recovery, whilst the wholesale gas and power prices continue to be held down by the realities of businesses still struggling with the impacts of the recession.